So, picture this. I'm minding my own business on a lazy Sunday afternoon, just lounging in our shared apartment, which, by the way, has seen better days thanks to Jake's impressive collection of, miscellaneous junk. I'm flipping through some channels when out of the corner of my eye, something catches my attention behind the couch. It's this oddly packed box, like it's been shoved there in a hurry, squished between the cushions and the wall. I mean, who even stores a box there? Curiosity gets the better of me, so I reach back and pull it out. The box is taped up tightly, no labels, and it feels suspiciously light. I peek inside, and there's just a handful of Jake's stuff. Some old clothes, a few books, and this weird little desk lamp that's been busted for ages. What's going on? Jake's not exactly the type to box things up and try to hide them like some kind of secret agent on a covert mission. I'm just starting to mull this over when Jake walks in, sipping his coffee like it's any other day. I casually mention the box, and he suddenly looks like he spotted a ghost, or worse, like I just interrupted a secret plan he's been cooking for months. He shuffles his feet and says, yeah, just moving some stuff around. Clearing out. But there's that weird pause, the kind that tells you something's definitely off. Moving stuff? From our apartment? Like permanently? It's funny how the tiniest thing can set this whole mental alarm ringing in your head. Because if Jake's packing up bits and pieces, what else is he hiding? Is he actually trying to move out on me without telling me? I mean, we've been roommates for like years. We shared late-night pizza disasters, angry fights over the thermostat, and more than a few times when one of us forgot to buy toilet paper. But now, he's suddenly cagey about a box? I sit back on the couch, eyeing that box. A quiet storm is brewing in my mind, but all I can do is let it stew because, well, Jake's the kind of guy who can make a mountain out of a molehill, or so I think. So yeah, that's when the whole mess started, and it definitely didn't end with just a weird hidden box, not by a long shot. Jake and I go way back, college roommates turned apartment sharers, co-conspirators in questionable late-night snack raids and the occasional dubious DIY project. He's generally the kind of guy who's dependable. The one who remembers the rent is due before the landlord sends a passive-aggressive email, or who actually buys toilet paper before we run out. But dependable doesn't mean he's an open book, not by a long shot. Our place isn't huge. A modest 2-bedroom in that middle-of-the-city neighborhood where the rent is affordable if you think eating instant noodles every night counts as a lifestyle choice. Jake's in the smaller room, I'm in the slightly bigger one, and the living room is that awkward no-man's land where I usually crash with a book or the remote control. Our schedules generally mesh well. He works mornings, I'm more of a night owl, so it's been a smooth operation. Until this whole weird vibe settled over him. Lately, Jake's been like a slightly different guy. When someone's around but not really present? Like he's physically there, but his mind is somewhere else. He's quieter, less chatty, and those little comments he used to make about the dumbest stuff, like why cereal sogs up so fast, are almost gone. And this wouldn't be so weird if he wasn't also suddenly weirdly evasive. Ask him what's up with the box, and he goes all nebulous with answers. Just dealing with some stuff? Yeah, sure, Jake, sure. I caught him a few times doing like these weird ritualistic pack-ups, invisible to me but presumably very real to him. Like he'd disappear into his room with a bunch of bags or boxes, only to come out an hour later acting like he hadn't just turned the place upside down. At one point, I overheard muttering about getting things ready, but when I asked what that meant, I got a vague stuff. Our mutual friend Lisa popped into the picture a couple of times during this phase. She's sweet but has a knack for walking into the middle of awkward situations without realizing it. Once, she caught me pacing with that box in hand, eyeing it like it was going to explode. She swims into the conversation, all bright-eyed, asking what was going on, and Jake chimes in with this half-smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Oh, just spring cleaning, he said, as if hiding a bomb under the couch was the new definition of tidy. But Lisa, bless her soul, just shrugged and started chatting about some new vegan restaurant she found. It was like she sensed but didn't want to pry. Maybe even she could tell something was off with Jake. And it wasn't just the boxes. Jake's routine shifted too. Those morning coffees he religiously brewed, skipped. The evenings spent binge-watching crap TV with me? Cancelled. Even the little things like picking up our mail or taking out the trash, they started slipping through the cracks. At first, I thought he was just stressed. Maybe work was hectic, but something felt different. One night, I tried to just straight up ask. We were sitting on the couch after a measly dinner of frozen pizza, and I looked at him and said, Jake, seriously, what's going on? Are you, thinking about moving out or something? His eyes darted away and then back at me, like he'd been caught with pie crumbs on his face. Moving out? Nah, man, what's that about? He chuckled, but it wasn't a real laugh, more like a reflex, so that was the setup. Jake, the steady roommate, suddenly playing cryptic like some kind of soap opera character. Our usual rhythm felt off, like a cracked record skipping in the background. And all I had to work with was this mysterious box, some half-hearted excuses, and a roommate who seemed ready to ghost without giving me a heads up. But hey, maybe I was just overthinking it. Maybe, we'll see. So, yeah, I decided that sitting around worrying wasn't going to cut it. I had to get to the bottom of this whole Jake's moving out in stealth mode saga, which turned out to be way more complicated and hilarious than I expected. First thing, I started playing detective, or at least tried to. I mean, what's a better disguise for snooping than pretending to just casually reorganize your own stuff? So I dug around, asking subtle questions about the box and, trying not to sound like a suspicious weirdo. But every time I got close to some kind of answer, Jake pulled this master-level deflection move. One night, I caught him staring intently at his laptop screen in the living room, but as soon as I walked by, he minimized the window so fast I wasn't even sure if I'd imagined it. Curiosity officially kicking into overdrive, I pulled out my phone and tapped Lisa's name. She was our mutual friend, and hey, maybe having a fresh set of eyes on this would crack the case. I shot her a quick text. Hey, you noticed Jake acting weird lately? Like, secretive weird? Not long after, her reply popped up. Lol, yeah, actually. He asked me last week if I knew any one-bedroom apartments around here. Seemed kinda random. Okay, weirdness confirmed. Jake was definitely up to something. My brain immediately jumped to these ridiculous scenarios. Was he secretly planning to ditch me? Had he started some crazy side life I didn't know about? Then came a curveball. Lisa messaged me again a few days later. All BTW. I saw Jake hauling a giant suitcase into his car. Like, middle of the night. What's up with that? Now I'm picturing Jake sneaking around the city like some low-budget spy flick. Like, why the cloak and dagger? Was he planning a disappearing act without even telling me? Meanwhile, back in the apartment, Jake was dropping hints without meaning to. I found a crumpled-up note in the trash with a name and an address hardly anyone here would know. Definitely not any of our usual hangouts. And then there were those late-night phone calls where Jake's voice dropped to this hush-hush tone, like he was auditioning for a heist movie. But here's the kicker. The more I tried piecing things together, the more confused and frustrated I got. Each clue seemed to lead to a dead end or a wild goose chase. One day, I woke up to find the front door wide open, Jake's bedroom empty, and no sign of him anywhere. No calls, no texts, just gone. I checked the living room. The box was still there, sitting innocently like some silent accomplice. I paced around, running through every conversation, every weird glance, anything I missed. Then my phone buzzed. Lisa again. He just texted me saying he'll be back soon. No idea where he went. So now I'm stuck. Half worried, half amused, waiting for Jake to reappear with some kind of explanation. Was he really moving out? Or was there a plot twist I couldn't see yet? Whatever it was, one thing's for sure, this secret moving out business wasn't as straightforward as it first seemed. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I was about to find out a hilarious secret, a heartbreaking truth, or just another bizarre chapter in the saga of sharing an apartment with Jake. Turns out, sometimes the biggest mysteries happen not in faraway places, but right behind your couch, or in your own living room with your roommate pulling a disappearing act. So, Jake eventually did come back, that was the first relief. But the way he walked through the door, all casual and like nothing was up, made my brain short-circuit a bit. Because after all the secretive moves, hushed phone calls, and the whole suitcase middle-of-the-night mystery, I was half expecting some big confession, maybe an apology tour, or at least a dramatic, "I'm sorry for freaking you out." Nada, just Jake dropping his keys on the counter like he hadn't been MIA for hours. I waited for my chance to corner him, which, spoiler alert, didn't come naturally because Jake's got this masterful skill at dodging serious talks with that, "Hey, wanna grab a beer?" Charm. So eventually, over a few beers and a couple of uncomfortable silences, he spilled the beans. Or, well, a version of the story at least. Turns out, the whole moving out secretly thing, it was exactly the opposite of what I suspected. Jake wasn't moving out because he hated the place or wanted to ditch me. No, what he was actually doing was secretly setting up a surprise for Lisa. Kind of the complete opposite of disappearing without a trace. It was more like undercover roommate with a mission. He'd been planning to propose to her. Yeah. Jake was trying to keep everything under wraps because, according to him, the less Lisa suspected, the better. He'd been borrowing a few things here and there, packing up some of his stuff to stash at his sister's apartment. Neighbors would get suspicious if a bunch of flowers and candles suddenly appeared at our place. The suitcase middle of the night? It was him sneaking over to grab a ring he'd left at a friend's? All the cryptic phone calls and secretive notes? Mostly logistics for the surprise. And the box behind the couch? A stash of old stuff he'd cleared out to make room for the big night setup. Honestly, it was such a curveball that I wasn't sure whether to laugh or just groan at myself for assuming the worst. Here I was, spinning wild scenarios, and meanwhile Jake was trying to pull off a romantic feat worthy of a cheesy rom-com. When he finally told me, I had to give him credit. Not just for the stunt itself, but for keeping all this under wraps without a single slip-up. It also made me realize how easy it is to jump to conclusions about the people we live with, especially when communication fizzles and little mysteries start piling up. The night he finally proposed? Yeah, it was perfect. The apartment was transformed, candles, fairy lights, and Lisa's favorite indie playlist humming in the background. She was totally caught off guard, and Jake? He looked like a nervous mess, which was honestly refreshing to see after all the sneaky, stoic stuff. Afterwards, once the celebrations died down and life got back to its usual rhythm, there was definitely a shift between Jake and me. It wasn't just roommates anymore, it felt like we had a new level of understanding. I'd gone from suspecting him of pulling a fast one on me to appreciating the lengths he'd go for someone he cared about. It was a reminder that sometimes people's quiet behaviors aren't about dodging you, they're about something else entirely. But as for trust, well, it's funny. I still tease him about the whole secret move-out act, and yeah, he pretends to be offended like I'm accusing him of espionage. But it made me think about how roommates, or really any close people, carry little secrets. Not the big, toxic kind, but the personal, meaningful kind that they just don't want to share until the moment's right. So here I am, looking back on the whole saga, wondering how many of these quiet mysteries happen in other apartments, behind other doors. How often do we just guess at what someone else is up to, when the truth might be something totally different and maybe even really good? That box behind the couch? It was never a sign of an ending, but just the beginning of a new chapter. And sometimes it takes a little secret or a whole hidden box to remind us that not every silence means something bad. Sometimes it means love. Or at least some really good surprise party prep.